Right. Good evening once again. Welcome to session. I think it's session 8 of our Oracle learning sessions. And today, although we have shared the agenda in order to discuss about RMAN fundamentals. So obviously, it is going to be RMAN fundamentals, of course, but today I thought I should just touch upon the backup part of things. So let me just share my screen first up to just a minute. So what to do now? Okay, so today this is the sections that we are going to cover, but I wanted this slide deck just to be a guideline for me because more than talking about concepts, I thought for this particular lesson, especially for RMAN activities or RMAN commands, it's better if I can do some hands-on for you to get a better understanding about the whole concept of recovery manager. Okay, so recovery manager is so anyway, we'll do the introduction. Recovery manager is none other than the recovery solution or media recovery solution given by Oracle. So when I say media recovery, that means in the event if your database gets corrupted, right? It could be physically getting corrupted or logically getting corrupted as well. Now, some might wonder what exactly it means when it comes to logical corruptions. Okay, so logical corruptions is basically when, let's say, as an example, you're supposed to, let's say you have a index created on a table, and you are inserting records to the table. When the records are getting inserted to a table, the corresponding index have to be updated as well, right? So if you are inserting a value to, let's say, a primary key column, that value has to be inserted into the index as well. I'm referring to the primary key index. But there could be certain situations due to bugs or due to certain other reasons where you may not see that corresponding index entry going into the index block, right? So then we call it a logical corruption. So it's not a physical or media damage, but it's a kind of a record loss, right? So that is just an example of a logical corruption. There are other examples that we can take, but I think that should be sufficient for now. So in case of a media failure, such as a logical corruption or a physical corruption, then of course recovery manager is the tool that we leverage in order to do such recoveries. But before doing any recoveries, we need to have our backups taken. So when you are taking backups, you can take backups across the container database, across PDBs, table spaces. And when it comes to recoveries, you can go to another extent, which is the tables. So even if there is a problem when it comes to a particular table, without impacting the rest of the things in the database, we should be able to recover that table to a certain point in time. Okay, right. Now, we can do online recoveries, meaning the database is going to be up and running. It is not going to, your recovery operation may not impact all the users in the database. Of course, if a particular table space goes offline and if it is unable to access until you do the recovery, that table space content may not be visible to the users. Right? So that is a partial unavailability, of course, but the rest of the content will be still available for the users, making it a kind of an online recovery that we perform on the database. Okay, and then natively Oracle supports encryption. You can decide on the encryption algorithm that you want to have. Similarly, we have compression as well. We can do a certain level of compression natively. At the same time, we can go with the certain algorithms that you want to use in case if you want to go with paid database options. So that is also possible with us. And then also when it comes to backup and recoveries, it will perform optimized backups, and it will also perform fast recoveries as well to meet certain SLAs of your organization. And then we will also have long-term backups. Right, you might need to keep backups for a longer period of time. Maybe due to compliance reasons, you need to keep them, and at the same time, you will be able to decide on those policies, and you can let RMAN automatically manage those retention times that you have set as well. Okay? So overall, RMAN has been and had been there with the Oracle database for a long period of time. So it's a very matured product, and we can do quite a lot of things with RMAN, and there are improvements coming up in every release with Oracle, and it's a massive area actually. But here we are, I mean, with that focus of giving you that fundamental knowledge of the database tools, the technologies that we have. The idea here is to give you some basics about recovery management. So although I say basics here, there could be certain topics that I touch upon that might be considered advanced as well, but it all depends on how you take it. Okay. Right. So the agenda for today is to learn about the recovery area, then about the connectivity of the recovery manager, and then about listing of backups, right? And then how do you check the persistent settings? And then also we'll touch upon how we can invoke backups, then the types of backups that we have, and then we'll talk about how we can uh, take copies of backups and what are the relevant attributes that we make use in order to achieve those requirements of ours. And then we'll do one compressed backup, and then we talk about the retention that I just talked about earlier, and then what it meant by a multi-section backups encryption, right? And then also how we can do validations, and also to invoke any if we are intended to take incremental backups, how we can do them as well. So this is just a guideline for me to get through these sections today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop from here. I will stop sharing, but I will switch my screen to the command prompt, right? So feel free to ask questions then and there if there's any uncertain thing that had come up. Okay, right. Let me just set my Oracle environment to the database that I have, which is Prod 21. Okay, so when you are getting connected to RMAN interface, right? We make use of the prompt RMAN, and then you can basically connect to target, right? Now this is one of the places that we connect. Now when I say connect target, I could also give uh, up now. Okay, so when it comes to users, you have the sysdba, right? So we also have sys backup, a dedicated user where he would be able to just focus on the backups that we take. So that is called sys backup. So similarly, you have sysdg for data guard management, because now lately Oracle had given these role separations in order to make sure that you focus on what you want to do, right? So rather than using the super user account for everything. But anyways, at this particular moment, I'm going to use the sysdba privilege in order to connect to the target database. Now, target is basically the database to which I'm connecting in order to get my backup done. In here, in this particular session, we are concerned about, we are concentrating basically on taking backups. So the target will always be the place where I take backups. Okay, so likewise, you can connect to target by using sys, and then you can give your correct string, right? And then you can simply connect, then password will be prompted, and you can connect to this now. Um, my database name here is prod 21, right? So if they ask for the password, So I can connect to the database. Yeah. So connected my target database, which is plot 21. So always remember, this is a good security practice. When you are to enter password, do not enter password just on the prompt here. You have that option as well. So I connect to my target database to, from which I'm going to take backups, right? Now, there are two other places, two other locations that if you want to, I can also say connect catalog. And if I have, let's say another user, for example, cat, let's say cat admin at, let's say I have another database, catdb. Right? Then again, the password will be prompted. I don't really have this database basically, so therefore there is no connectivity that I can have. But this is another place that I can connect to, right? So catalog is basically another database, as I mentioned before, where you have your repository stored. Now, what do you mean by the repository? Repository is a place where you store your backup histories. Right? There could be situations where you need to retain long-term backups. Right? Then you need to know where those backups are stored. Right? So catalog would be ideal for that because our default catalog, now this catalog that I'm talking about, a separate database, is optional for us. Why is it optional for us? Because we already have a default catalog. Our default catalog is always going to be our control file. So control file has a limited size. So the moment you try to keep lots of backup histories within the control file, basically the control file will grow, right? So in order to manage the size of that, we may set a kind of a retention policy there, where after a certain period of time, the old entries of the control file regarding backups will be taken off so that the size of the control file can be managed. Right? But if you are storing all these things in a separate database, then size won't matter, right? So these are just entries. I'm not referring to backups per se, but the catalog will keep track of all the backup histories that you have. And then, of course, if you want to keep long-term backups like maybe 6 years, 7 years, still those entries regarding where your backups are can be maintained in a catalog database. In fact, if you want to maintain such larger backup without having a deletion policy, right? Then most likely you need to opt for a separate catalog to maintain your backup histories. All right. So whenever if you already have a catalog database, then while you connect to your target database, you would be connecting to your catalog database as well, because catalog should keep a track of the backups that you are incurring on your target database. The third location that you'd be connecting is what we call auxiliary destination. So auxiliary destination is, let's say, could be a situation or could be a place where you may have just installed your binaries and you try to connect to that location, maybe to duplicate your target database, right? So in order to set up your standby database, we basically connect to auxiliary database while connecting to your target, because I want my production database to be copied onto this auxiliary destination in order to have a copy created, right? This term auxiliary will come into play even when you're doing a certain point in time recoveries using RMAN. There, this auxiliary location refers to a temporary location where RMAN can build a temporary database in order to do certain recoveries. Okay, so auxiliary is none other than another location where it can do database population and then do a copy or do a recovery there. Okay, right. So those are the three places where we can get connected to. All right, and now that I have already connected, now don't worry about this error message, because the error was indicating that there is no database to connect with this connect string, right? Now, so cat admin is basically, but I mean, this is just an assumption or a name that I just came up, right? So you can have any name, but that cat admin or whoever that you want to have will be the recovery catalog owner, right? So you'll be having a separate username and password for that, right? So in the event if somebody wants to have let's say you have 10 databases, 10 target databases to be managed, but you can still have a single catalog database, right? But if you have 5 administrators, database administrators managing those 10 databases, they might sometimes be sharing this catalog admin's password, right? Username and password, right? So then all these 5 DBAs will get to know the catalog password. So it might be considered to be a security risk. In such cases, we can always go for something called as virtual catalog. Now, these are a bit advanced terminologies, but yet you can have a virtual catalog created where you have a single catalog with a catalog owner and a password. You don't share that username and password, but you can start creating additional catalogs underneath that main catalog. So those are called virtual catalogs. So virtual catalogs will have a separate admin username and password, which can be used by different administrators rather than sharing the main catalog username password amongst themselves. Okay, right. So that's something optional. Anyways, coming back to our sections. Now I have connected here. So first thing what I need to know is to get an understanding about my target environment, right? So if I just type report schema in my target, right? So I will get to know what files that I basically have in my environment, right? So it will give you a whole heap of files that are part of my database. Now, the good thing here is that since I've connected to a container database, it shows me the roots uh, sysocs table spaces, the undo table spaces, and also the template database, which is the PDB $seed. In addition to that, it will also show me, the table spaces belonging to other pluggable databases. See, you have PDB1 colon users. So this users table space belongs to PDB1. So the file numbers or file IDs, the names of the files, all these things can be retrieved using the report schema. Okay. And then also you see the list of temporary tables or temporary files or temp table space related temp files. So these are also listed here, although RMAN will not take backups of such, because even if you lose a temporary file, then you can easily create one, because the content of those temp files will not be permanent at all. Okay, so therefore there is no problem in losing those files. So therefore it's not required for our man to take consider these temp files into its backup strategy. All right, fine. So so that's basically about the back the structure of the database that we have. And you also can type list backup of database. So that will give us this listing command will give us the information about the backups that we have taken on my database. So if I want, I can also type backup, sorry, list backup of pluggable database PDB1. So I can just see the pluggable databases backup histories, right? So backups that I have taken before. Okay. So similarly, if it is a particular data file that I'm concerned about, I can also type list backup of data file. Let's say I want to see the data file number 1. If I want, I can type the full. Oops. Okay, there is no data file 10 here. So let's just type maybe 5. Okay, so what this means is that there is data file, but there are no backups found to be in the database for data file number 5. Okay, so if you just go up, be able to check that out as well. You can see file number 5 probably refers to this one, right? So this is the file number 5, part of $. It's a system data file, which we have not backed up yet, right? Now, fine. So that is about the data file, how we use the list command. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you kind of an idea about some persistent configurations, right? Now, the moment you connect to your, let me just exit from me and show you once again. RMAN. Earlier I connected using the sys password, but here I can always type like this and connect because I'm already in the database host, and I have already connected as the Oracle owner, which is Oracle, and without giving a password, just like how we connect to the database with the /sysdb, I can make use of that Oracle owner's account and then log in directly to the database. So here, once I connect, right, I can also do something like this. I can type show configuration. So, sorry, it's show all. I'm sorry about that. Show configuration is for something else. So when you type show all, at the beginning, it shows me that it is retrieving data or information from this control file, right? I told you our default catalog is the control file. So it doesn't have a separate catalog that we have connected to. So therefore, it retrieves these persistent parameters or attributes from the control file. Now, what do you mean by persistent? So Oracle had made our lives a bit easy because when you have this configuration set appropriately, then the next time when you want to do a recovery, when you want to take a backup, you just execute the backup command, maybe a single line backup command. Because all these things that you have stored will be taken into account when those backups are being performed. I will just give you one example, right? Now you can see here the retention policy. You can see if I type show retention policy, I can view that same thing once again, right? It says that redundancy, set to redundancy 1. Now, what I meant by redundancy 1 is that, or what it meant is that when you are taking a backup, right? If you take the same file backed up again, right? Then you'll be actually having 2 copies of the same backup, right? No change. So what happens then? So the moment you do that, then it becomes redundant, right? But this redundancy value we have given as 1, meaning to say that my policy, my retention policy is I will be only keeping 1 copy of a file or 1 backup copy of a file. If I take 2 copies, then it doesn't really fit into my retention policy. So where are we going to keep our backups? Okay. Okay. So if you get into, I can go into RMAN as well. Now, most of these, in the sense, or your SQL commands, about 99% of your SQL commands can be typed within RMAN itself. But now that I have logged out, I'll connect to SQL Plus here. So I have this 2 parameters. One is the destination, which is this group of mine, which I have used. This is the plus reco disk group. And I also have set destination file size. Now, the meaning of destination file size is to give a kind of an upper limit for my recovery related files, right? So what are my recovery related files? If I do select asterisk from $, recovery area usage, it will give me all the, recovery related files and their usage. Okay. So this this group is holding a copy of my control file. So it has used 0.17 of this total space. Okay. So if I take archive logs also go into this same location, first record, and it is currently using 3% or 3.5% of that total size of, I think 1 GB I have given here, 10 GB rather. So that out of the 10 GB, it is using that much, right? And then here we talk about the backup pieces, image copies and all, which are related to RMAN. So you can figure out of this total allocation, what is the space or what is the percentage these components are using at the moment. All right. So that is what you have here. Okay. So let me just exit from here once again and connect to RMAN. Okay. And then I type report need backup. The meaning of report need backup is basically to understand the retention policy that I have set, right? The retention policy that I have set versus the backups that I already have taken. Okay. Now you can see here, when I type report need backup, it says using target. Okay, this is fine. And then it says retention policy will be applied to the command. So what is our retention policy? Our retention policy was set to redundancy of 1. So idea is at any given time, I should be having a copy of all my files, 1 copy, right? A report of files which with less than 1 redundant backups. Okay. So here it says that there is a okay, these files do not have at least 1 copy of the backups available, right? So what I would do is, now you can see there's a file number, right? Yeah, 25. 25 refers to the user's data file. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you one thing. If I backup this, backup data file 25, so while the backup is on, okay, so the backup is done actually. You will observe few what you call persistent parameters in use. Okay. Earlier I told you we started discussing about the retention time, which is part of the persistent parameters right here, right? Retention policy. So this is one of them. And we could also figure out control file auto backup on here, right? As a persistent value. So if you go down, you can see it starts a backup of a control file as well, along with the SP file. Now this is as an effect of setting the control file auto backup to on, meaning whenever you take a backup of your database, make sure to take a backup of your control file as well. So since this parameter is set to on, even though I don't explicitly tell, it automatically backs up the control file as well, right? And also you will figure out here, there's something called as a channel, right? So channel is basically, a stream of operation, right? Where it will most likely obtain, obtain from uh, obtain resources in order to carry out the backup operation. So you may just, consider it to be a worker, right? So there are 2 workers here that you can see. There is one Aura disk 1. This is just a name of the channel. And there is Aura disk 2, right? So if you go up here again to check the configuration or the persistent values, you can see here configure, it says configure device type is parallelism 2. So this parallelism 2 indicates that we need to use at any given time 2 channels. So if you have made this to 3, you would see that there are 3 channels getting activated when I perform a backup or recovery procedure. All right. So that is what I meant by persistent. So I don't need to explicitly ask RMAN to start 2 channels or 5 channels. That part you can always go and configure here. I will tell you how we can edit this as well. So however, I've just taken a backup of data file 25, right? So let's now check if I go and check for report need backup. Now that I have fulfilled the requirement of having one backup of data file 25, I shouldn't be seeing that data file 25 here. Yeah. So data file 25 is gone now because it had already been taken. I mean, we have taken a backup of that. Okay. Now this retention policy, the retention policy that we saw here in our persistent parameters is currently set to redundancy 1. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to change this. So if you want to change these parameters, you always try with start with configure retention policy or whatever, right? Here, all these things you can change. So let me just copy this one up to this point. I type configure retention policy to recovery window of say 3 days. Now this is another value that you can set your retention to. Mind you, earlier we had retention policy to set to redundancy 1. That means we want to keep at any given time 1 copy of a backup of any file, right? But now this time I changed the retention policy from redundancy to recovery window. Now when I say recovery window for 3 days, you should be able to do the recovery. Now today is Monday, right? So minus 3 days. So you should be able to go back 3 days, minus 3 days. And if you are to do a recovery there at that particular point, you should be able to do that as well. So our backups, our files should be arranged in order to do a recovery 3 days prior as well. Okay. So if you want to have your database recovered up to say Friday, then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, right? So that those files, those backups should be available in order to do this recovery. So that's the understanding here. Okay. But then anyways, if I type, see, you can see the old value has been changed now to the new value. So if I type show retention policy, now indicates that we are using recovery windows 3 days. Okay. Now, the two entries are mutually exclusive, which means either you have to set based on the redundancy level or you have to use based on the recovery window. So you can't use both for your retention policy. Okay. But then, then you can, I mean, you have to choose between one of them, right? Now, in the event, if you feel that, okay, this is not so appropriate for me, I need to revert this back to my previous setting of redundancy 1, right? So I can just do this. I can say configure retention policy. I can say clear. So the moment you clear it, it goes back to its original setting, right? Okay, so if I just do show retention policy, you see that now it had gone back to redundancy 1. So whether you want to have redundancy 1 or whether you want to have redundancy 2, that's up to you to decide, right? Now we learned about how we can do this change using the configure command. And mind you, these values are all persistent, meaning the changes that you make will be updated in the control file because these values are derived from the control file. So since you are updating the control file, even upon a database restart, these values will be there as is. All right. Okay. Now, let me quickly tell you one more thing. So, so let's say that I have redundancy one. So you remember that we took a backup of data file 25, right? So let me take a backup of another. Sorry, let me take a backup of. Okay, before that, let me just check this out. Select asterisk from v dollar recovery area usage. Show you one thing here. Okay, so you can just see that there's this additional column called space reclaimable, right? So just keep an eye on this. And I'm specifically talking about the backup piece backup here, which indicates 0.69. I'll tell you what that is. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a backup of the same data file. Backup data file 25. So I already took a backup of the backup of data file 25 before, and now this is my second copy. According to my retention policy, I'm supposed to maintain only one copy, right? But this is my second copy. So let's say what happens here. Right. Now what happens is this. So obviously report need backup will not give us anything about any information about 25 because I already have backed it up, right? But there are other things like report obsolete. So I can type obsolete, and that is also related to your redundancy, sorry, your retention policy. Currently, our retention policy is to have redundancy one, only one copy. But you may feel that I have okay. So here may be a little difficult to figure out what file that you have in this, but the command report obsolete, right? The report obsolete will tell us what are the backups that we already have, which are not really fit into the retention policy. Obviously, the second backup that we have taken now, file 25 is not very appropriate, right? Because we only want to have one copy. So let me just do one thing. Let me run this select asterisk from v dollar recovery area usage. Oops, select asterisk from v dollar area usage. Okay, so you can see that from that 0.69, it had got increased to 0.88. So most likely it is that as well. Now I will tell you what this is. You can see the free percentage reclaimable. Now reclaimable means, right, out of this space that we saw, right, the recovery area, we have set it to 10 GB. I showed you that as a parameter. Now what happens is that when the backups become obsolete means what? You have backups taken, they are physically available, but they don't fit into the retention policy, right? So those backups will still be maintained within that space. But in the event if there is a space pressure and you don't have enough space in order to have more new backups stored, those backups listed as obsolete backups will be taken off from this recovery area usage. I mean, from the recovery area. That's the whole purpose of maintaining that. So that will give us, I mean, the view will give us some indication of how much of a space that we can release in case if there is a space pressure. But at the same time, now that we have found out what are our obsolete backups, I can also type a command in order to clear my obsolete backups as well. So let me do that as well. I will type delete obsolete. So it will list me the set of obsolete files in terms of single files. So they ask me to enter a confirmation. I can always bypass the confirmation and go as well with the delete command. You have to add the no prompt command before the delete, but let me just do acknowledge this now. So if I say yes here, right? Okay. So they say one file you cannot delete, so let it be, that's all right. And then I type the report obsolete. So apart from this backup that it cannot identify, the rest of the entries are all gone. Right? And also if I type select asterisk from $, recovery area usage, you find that see all these values, maybe apart from an archive log file, right? All these values have now become zeros because all the obsolete values, or sorry, obsolete backups are listed under this reclaimable section. Okay, so even though you find 99% usage in the used, you not 99%, but certain usage here, you don't need to worry as long as you have a good percentage on the reclaimable side, because Oracle will automatically delete them in case if there's a space pressure for new backup of for the new upcoming backups. All right. So that's about obsolete. Okay. Now let me take this backup piece. Now it says that could not be deleted, and he asked us to do a cross check. Okay, so let me just do a cross check also for our understanding. Cross check backup. Okay. So we'll just do a cross check backup and figure out what's wrong with this backup that they are listing. Okay. Now, when you do the cross check, it would have been better if I had the chance of showing you that /tmp backup as well. It's difficult to locate, but yeah, here you go. This one here. You can see here, it is being marked as expired. Right? So earlier we found a status called obsolete. Obsolete means when the backups, I mean, physically the backups are available, but they are not in par with the retention policy that we have. But what it meant by expired is this. Now, I'll show you one thing here, /tmp, this backup. Okay. Let me just exit quickly. Then if I say ls and this file, says that he can't find the file, which means it had been deleted, right? So what it meant by expired, therefore, is in the catalog, which is our default catalog, which is the control file, it shows that these backups, backups or the files that they are referring to, they exist. But actually, physically, they are all gone. Maybe somebody would have deleted them manually. So if you had manually deleted them, RMAN catalog is not aware of that. So it believes or it feels or it thinks that it is still there or they are still there, which is not the case, right? So that is where we do a cross check. When you do a cross check against the backups, according to the entries that the control file is already carrying, it will do a physical verification to identify whether the backups are physically available or not. So if they are not there, they will be marked as expired, right? So we discussed about two concepts. One is expiring, one is getting obsoleted, right? So here we are getting expired information. Why? Because physically the files don't, or the backups don't exist. We have two choices here. Even if you leave it like that, for a recovery operation, RMAN will never search for these files. Why? Because it knows that they are expired, so they are not physically available. Second thing that we can do is we can simply delete these records from the control file because they are no more there. All right. But in the event if you feel that these backups have been moved for a, for some temporary operation or for a particular purpose, you have moved them to a different location and you are going to move them back. But the moment you have moved it, you have already run the cross check and now they have been marked as expired. But if you feel that those backups are needed, so once you have moved them back, you can rerun the cross check command to make it available. So those options are available for you. All right. So for now, since I'm not going to use them, I know that they are not physically available as well. I will delete those backups that are marked as expired. Okay. So I will type delete. I can say no prompt. Earlier I didn't use that. So we just say backup. So since I said no prompt, it will not ask for a prompt from me. It will not ask for a feedback from me, but instead it will keep on deleting all these files which are not physically present. Okay, right. So that's about uh, obsolete files, obsolete backups, as well as what do you call the expired backups, right? So I feel that it's understood. Now, challenge is that the time is running out as well. So if that is the case, we can probably continue the same lesson the next day as well. But let me do one thing. Now, when you're taking backups, let me show that configuration once again. Show all. If I put the persistent values, you can see when I just invoke a backup, the backups actually will have parallelism 2, which means there will be two channels open, and the backup will be taken as, or the backup type would be backup set. When RMAN invokes backup, RMAN can take backups in two ways: as a backup set backup or as a image copy. Also here also you have I think there was an image copy message or persistent value. Let me, okay, cannot locate it here, but anyway, um, okay, so anyway, you have that one as well. So what does it mean by backup set backup? So when you're taking a backup, right now that I did not mention, I took backups of the 25 data file 25 two times. And I did not mention whether I want a backup set backup or a image copy backup, right? But then the idea here is that if it is backup set, which is the default, as you can see here, right, it will take block level backups, right? It will take block level backups from the database. So it uses, we can use, let me just show you quickly. This time I'll backup, let's say, table space. I will say backup as compressed backup set. PDB1 colon users table. So this time I'm going to backup the users table space of pluggable database 1. Now the difference, oops. backup as compressed backup set, pluggable database. Table space this time, right? PDB. Okay, so when I run this, the difference is that we are calling it to be a backup set anyways. So what happens? The blocks will be read from the the table space, right? In fact, the data files, right, pertaining to the users table space of PDB1, and it will be using compressed backups. Now, Oracle RMAN supports basic compressed backups. We call it a basic backup or basic compressed backups, which is free of charge, right? So in basic method, what it does is it basically eliminates any unused block, right? In this table space that we are referring to, we are talking about the underlying data file. If the data file has, blocks within the data file, you have blocks which are unused now. When I say unused, maybe you would have had some tables, some objects before, but they are all gone now. So those are not null, but they did have content before, but no more there, right? So those blocks will be eliminated during the backup. So that is one way of compressing. The second approach that it takes is RMAN will not take null blocks. Now, what do you mean by null blocks? The blocks that have never been used in the data file. Now, when you want to back up your users table space, well, behind the scene, it will back up the data file only, right? Data file or data files underneath the users table space. So if you take your RMAN compressed backup, which we call, here it was a backup set backup we requested, and it's a compressed backup, right? And these compressed backups can only be invoked for backup sets, right? Where it goes into block level. Now, since we asked for a basic compression, this is basic compression, it will eliminate eliminate null blocks. It will eliminate unused blocks. So those are the two that will be eliminated, and hence your backup size will be small. All right. So that is how you call the native basic compression, enable a basic compression for your backup set, right? So if you want, you can set an algorithm. Let's say there are certain algorithms available. You have low, medium, and high, right? You can set them in your configuration as well, right? And then if you set it to high, low, or medium, that means we are using a hidden algorithm, right? If it is low, that means the backup will be faster, but the compression ratio is less. So the middle one is middle one is medium. And then you also have high, meaning you are using an internal algorithm in order to get the backup as small as possible, but then it will use a lot of resources such as CPU during the backup time. But for those, there is a certain algorithm that will be used. But here for basic, where it is given free of charge, you only will consider elimination of null blocks, elimination of unused blocks. All right. So here, this is a backup set backups, which basically has, if you take a backup set, right, backup set will have physical backup pieces, right? It will have physical backup pieces. So these physical backup pieces will be generated through these channels. Now we saw channel 1 here, and you can see the piece handle information. So this is that backup piece generated from one of these channels, right? So since it had only one channel, one file rather, only one channel had been used. But these channels have that capability of acquiring blocks from many data files. not just from one file, but from many files into a single backup piece. So the moment now here, of course, we only have one data file available for the user's table space. But if I had given this for the database, obviously there will be more files, right? So one channel can accommodate, you can mention, I mean, you can do certain settings as well. But anyway, if you take an example like 5 files, so these 5 files can be done in parallel by one channel. So blocks from each of these files will be coming into a single backup piece. Okay, so that is that concept what we call as backup multiplexing, right? So multiplexing is a mechanism where you do where you start reading blocks from many files and put them into a single piece. Okay, so again, since we are talking about a backup piece, that means we are talking about a backup set backup. So backup set is kind of a logical entity. Underneath, you will have backup pieces. So a backup piece might contain blocks from one file or from many files. If you have many files obtained by a single channel in order to store them in a single backup piece, we call it backup multiplexing. All right. Okay. So any questions up till now? Okay, so I hope the session was productive. Unfortunately, we have to have a closure now. Asiri, hope
Yeah,
that is
Gan.
okay with you because
Yeah,
I
it's
need to.
okay, Gan, because
Yeah,
because it's past 3 now, so you can
yeah,
close now. So Kavindu, can you stop the recording?
yeah. So if there's any question, please feel free to ask Asiri, or we can just discuss it in the
Yeah.
next day as well. So we will continue Asiri with this. There are a few more concepts